Hey folks, James Abrinio coming to you from Abrinio Law, your Northern Virginia personal injury and criminal defense law firm. It's Friday, about 1 p.m. Figured I'd do a quick video just to end out the week. And so by now, you've probably heard of the sandwich guy in D.C. There was, now a former DOJ employee that was very upset with the fact that D.C. was taken over by federal law enforcement, the fact that there was immigration officers. So he decided to take an action that I would not recommend anybody do. And just for a reminder, I'll go ahead and play the video for you.
Now to an update on that man accused of throwing a sandwich at a federal law enforcement officer in D.C. Sean Dunn is charged with assaulting an officer, which is a felony. And now 7 News is learning he's now been fired from his job at the Department of Justice.
Now, recently, I think it's recent as yesterday, a news reporting came out that the DOJ had attempted multiple times to charge Mr. Dunn with felony assault on law enforcement. But as you can see here in the Washington Post dated yesterday, so today again is August 28th. Today is, yesterday is, yes, 28th. Today is the 29th. Prosecutors charged the D.C. sandwich thrower with misdemeanor. And apparently the federal authorities, U.S. Attorney Jean Perillo, I still cannot believe that I'm actually saying that sentence, has failed at least 4 times this month to persuade grand juries to indict people who have been accused of assaulting, resisting, or impeding officers. And that happened in this case, where assault ultimately Wednesday charging Dunn, 37 years old, with a misdemeanor count of assault, of assaulting, and it was captured on video. What I will say also, and we'll talk about the law in just a moment, but what is also pretty terrifying about the U.S. Attorney and DOJ's behavior here, it was the fact that I guess the White House bragged on social media that they essentially used a 20-person raid to arrest him. They even put it on X, and he said, and Perillo said he thought it was funny. Well, he doesn't think it's funny today because we charged him with a felony. Ultimately, they couldn't get a felony against him. But I just wanted to show the essentially the marketing video that this DOJ and this U.S. Attorney's Office is using. So this is. When they went to arrest, this is the White House posting an arrest video of Mr. Dunn.
Coming down.
And again, this video is really to talk about the law of assault on law enforcement, particularly here in Virginia. But I've got to just say that it's pretty concerning, this behavior by U.S. Attorney's Office, by federal law enforcement. Look, it is a crime to throw objects at federal law enforcement officers. It is a crime to throw objects at anybody. So I'm not justifying that. But that being said, and my understanding is Mr. Dunn actually agreed and said that he would turn himself in, but the White House apparently and this DOJ decided instead of doing that, they're going to make a show of it and use a 20-person raid to go to his apartment building to arrest him. When you see behavior like that, folks with guns, you never know what happens in those situations. Maybe another person in the building mistakes them for some other violent behavior, and then they take action, and all of a sudden bullets are flying. So that is just completely inappropriate behavior, regardless of whether or not you support Mr. Dunn and you think he should be acquitted or you think he should go to jail. That's just ridiculous. But that being said, again, the point of this video was to talk about Virginia law and how to learn about what may happen if you were charged with a crime here in Virginia for insulting a law enforcement officer. And I've got to say, the fact that he was not, they were not able to obtain a felony warrant against him is pretty remarkable. Now, I haven't looked at the statute of assault on a law enforcement officer in D.C., But in Virginia, an assault on law enforcement officer is frankly a pretty easy charge to obtain from a grand jury. You don't have to show any all you have to show is an assault. You don't have to show assault and battery. So there can literally be an assault without even having physical contact with an officer. Usually you see pushing, shoving. Of course, there are cases that are more serious that warrant assault on law enforcement, but the threshold, at least here in Virginia, is pretty low. I'm wondering if the threshold is equally low in DC. Now, another thing about Virginia's assault on law enforcement officer is it is a felony, but it also carries with it a mandatory 6-month jail sentence if you are convicted. What that means is if you are charged with assault on law enforcement here in Virginia and it doesn't work out to a misdemeanor and you decide you're going to go ahead and try your case because you think you're innocent, or you think the behavior was justified given the, let's say that law enforcement is pushing you and you maybe pushing back and you claim it's justified touching, or you didn't intend to touch them, things like that, and you lose, it's a mandatory 6 months in jail. And so what oftentimes happens here in Virginia where you have nominal assaults, and I will frankly describe Mr. Dunn's behavior as what we call nominal assault. But what I mean by that is no injury, no serious physical contact. I mean, he threw a sandwich at him. That's more disrespectful than meant to be injurious, at least in my view. I think that's why he did it. And so to me, that is more of a nominal assault rather than if you haul off and slug somebody and they suffer a traumatic brain injury, or you obviously something more serious, you get them on the ground and start kicking them, things like that. And so here in Virginia, what happens a lot of times, you'll have nominal assault cases where folks will be charged, let's say in the course of being arrested, and they'll take action that's even just perceived as assault on law enforcement. The charge will issue, and then they're facing a mandatory 6-month jail with a felony conviction. Of course, they could also be convicted of impose more than 6 months. That's just a 6-month mandatory minimum sentence. And so a lot of times what will happen is, even in the nominal cases, what prosecutors will do is they'll recognize it's an overcharge, or at least overcharge for the circumstances, and then they'll offer a misdemeanor with maybe some jail time to serve, even when I think cooler minds would agree that, this should be, hey, some community service type behavior, or it was more of an accident. And if we put it in front of a jury, the accused has a pretty good chance of winning, but they just can't take the risk of felony conviction, 6 months in jail. So in Virginia, assault on law enforcement is a very, very serious charge. I have had far too many conversations with individuals where both that accused person and I felt that there was a good argument of an acquittal at trial, but because of their job, because of their living situation, because they've got kids at home, they can't risk a felony, they can't risk 6 months in jail, and so they're forced to take a plea agreement that oftentimes, in my own experiences, I didn't think it was just. But at the end of the day, my job as counsel is not to tell them what they should do, or what the right thing to do is. It's to give them the options and let them weigh out the risks. And ultimately, it's got to be their decision and not mine. Far too many times I've wanted to try cases, but at the end of the day, it was the client's decision and not mine. Another thing to think about when you look at a case like Sean Dunn's, I would be remiss not to mention it. Again, this video is more meant to be a legal discussion rather than a policy or politics discussion. But I have major concerns about what's going on in DC. I have major concerns about the resources being used by federal law enforcement. I also have major concerns that we have a Department of Justice that appears to be essentially being ran by the White House directly. And you have the White House posting essentially a brag video by federal law enforcement showing what will happen if you take a stance against the political views of this administration, and frankly putting people's lives at risk. And I'm not justifying what Mr. Dunn did. What I will call out though is the improper use of federal law enforcement to issue a raid in an apartment building where people live. It could be hurt. Also, you can get a social media video. I think that's absurd. I also have always had concerns about our own Virginia assault on law enforcement officer statute. I see it charged oftentimes when I don't think it was necessary, and I don't think it was the point. And I think people were legitimately innocent, but they were forced to plead guilty because they couldn't take the risk. But that's really a discussion for another day. So the long and short of it is, there's a lot going on in the world. There's a lot of concern about what's happening by this administration and other law enforcement agencies. I get that. But if you're an individual citizen, you have to be very careful. The assault on law enforcement charge, especially here in Virginia, is very, very serious. And you may be put in a situation that while your intentions were to stand up to unfair treatment of others, you may end up sacrificing your career and other aspects of your life. So be very careful out there. I do not condone violent behavior. And frankly, from a political standpoint, I think violent behavior ends up giving fuel to the fire of an administration that's overbearing. So I don't think it's productive either. There are other ways to protest. And, I'm not a human being. I get, emotions run high and all that, but cooler heads must prevail. And, you just have to be smart about this. And of course, if you're ever charged with a crime, you can assert the Fifth. Don't have to make statements to law enforcement. Another aspect of this whole thing is something called jury nullification. All right. This is a concept that a jury can choose to acquit even when they find enough facts to convict. That's just their inherent authority as a jury to choose to not impose impose a criminal statute when they feel that it's unjust. So it's something that it's not in a jury instruction. When you're sitting on a jury, you don't get informed of it. It's kind of hush hush. Apparently you're not allowed to talk about it. I recall a case where somebody was handing out flyers outside of a courthouse about jury nullification, and they got some hot water about it. I can't recall exactly what happened, but this is definitely a legal concept. If you have questions about it, research it. Maybe I'll do a separate video on that. So wish you guys the best. Have a great, safe Friday. And, just be careful out there.